Hey folks, if you're a fan of action RPGs, you may have already heard of Wayfinder, an MMO by Airship Syndicate that recently hit early access. As it stands, I've actually gotten the chance to run through it, and after some 16 hours, I certainly have some words about the experience. So many words. So, strap in as I try and answer the question, was this title a great find or did it ultimately lose its way? I'm your host Arlian, let's find out together. Now, before we really get into things, I do want to emphasize that this game is in early access. It's plausible that at least some of these issues may get addressed. Nonetheless, I also feel the need to point out that there are a number of specifically problematic elements which seem quite intentional in their design, which leaves me less than hopeful. We'll get to those though, don't you worry. First though, let's tackle the story, and honestly, the premise isn't too bad. Wayfinder takes place in the world of Evanor, which has found itself subject to a near spontaneous attack by the Gloom, a sort of primordial essence that basically unmade swaths of the world. It's only through the heroic sacrifice of a handful of heroes that the city of Skylight is able to avoid the same fate. That said, it's less avoided and more delayed. The world is still being consumed, which is why one of the original heroes, Omen, sifts through the gloom in order to pluck out the essence of the protagonist, which had remained somewhat intact due to their indomitable will. This rescue also had a secondary effect because they also bring back a connection to the gloom, and with it, the ability to safely navigate the fragments of their world, something that might prove pivotal in figuring out how things happened and how to fix things. A lot of this is front-loaded in the opening cutscene and dialogue that accompanies the tutorial. From there, you can expect the story to advance in trickles, progressing inch by inch with the quests you do. Really, I'd have more to say on this front, but a number of impediments complicated this. Speaking of which, it's about time to talk shop about the gameplay, or rather, the amount of gameplay I actually got to enjoy. See, while I've played the game for 16 hours, likely less than half of this has been the game itself, because it's normal for it to take around 2 hours to enter the game, which is still a vast improvement over the troubled launch that made it impossible to enter. Mind you, improved isn't great, given there are still some mid-queue errors that will punch you out of place and force you to take it all the way from the top, capped off by an insulting server full error that only kicks in when the queue resolves. You know, instead of holding your place or something. Neat. Oh, and on top of that, when I did the tutorial and was told that finishing it would lock me into the character I was playing, I decided I wanted to check out another one, which kicked me out to the main screen. Neater. But let's just set all that aside, because honestly, despite how rough this all is, there are more than good odds that this will be fixed at some point. And quite frankly, that's just the tip of the iceberg as far as mechanical issues. In fact, the one I want to start off with is the fact that Wayfinder somehow manages to fundamentally fail at the core aspect of what it is, namely being an MMO. Yes, it's online, and yes, there are people that are running around the world that you can technically murder things alongside, but when I tried playing alongside friends, I found that I had a great deal of trouble actively adding anyone to my party. Yes, I could get a randomized one by entering a dungeon, but I wanted to preemptively create a party in order to tackle the stages which had very specific quest requirements. So I was essentially shit out of luck on this front. Because while most MMOs allow you to walk up to characters and invite them to your party, or even just create an open group that people can freely join, that's not the case here. Instead, it provides a weird menu which only allows you to access a very narrow selection of characters. There might be a bundle of people sitting in front of a dungeon talking about how they're looking for a group, but you can't simply add them. No, instead, your only option is to try and share your friend code, which in practice didn't actually work, because the people who did try had me show up as offline and unable to join my parties anyways. Just more neatness for the pile. Admittedly, this isn't much of a big deal for the overworld, because you passively earn EXP and drops by being near any enemy that gets killed, but again, it can be frustrating for coordinating higher end content. especially since that content I wanted to tackle, you can find yourself penalized for tackling it with impatient random people. See, normally as you progress a dungeon, you'll slowly earn progress towards better drops, which comes in several tiers. Tiers which are bumped down whenever someone dies. Now, while you can revive a fallen character pretty simply by channeling besides them, I found myself grouped with people who forced a respawn and tanked the rewards for the entire group. Or, for that really hard content I was tackling, it would pair me up with an undergeared level 3, because that was always going to go well. I just wanted to play this with a friend who knew what they were doing, who I could talk to. That's all I asked for. That's it. And admittedly, the queue thing, that made it a nightmare to start with, to coordinate with, given the whole 2-hour wait time and what happens if one of us crashes out during it, which, by the way, happened. I never actually got to play this game beside my friend. Now, all of this isn't great, but still, somehow, I still hold a slim hope that it might be mitigated. The same can't be said for the monetization. That is just straight up built into the game. First off, Wayfinder currently requires players to pay their way in, despite its eventual plans to go free to play. While this could be posed as being able to get an early peek at the game before others, in practice it feels more like we're paying to be the company's beta testers. This is especially egregious when you consider that there is a founder pack that puts people back $150 fucking dollars, and has the added bonus of plenty of people not receiving all those items that they paid for. Those items just aren't implemented yet. But it gets worse. Somehow it just finds a way to keep getting worse. Earlier, you may recall that I mentioned the game warns you that you'll be locked into your choice of character after the tutorial. It's not kidding here. Unlike some MMOs that provide you additional character slots or the ability to delete a character you don't enjoy, your choice is set in stone and that's it. If you don't like your current one, you are stuck. Instead, you'll need to unlock a new character through an extremely grindy process, which even players who invested over 40 hours during the earlier closed test haven't achieved. Or, more likely, you'll need to spend real-life money to unlock them at a minimum cost of $15 and upwards of $20. This includes the other tutorial characters, by the way. So, there is no early character quest that lets you swap around, you're just locked in, which makes that $20 buy-in feel extremely deceptive. This absolute avarice dressed up in the Emperor's new clothes doesn't stop there either. Initially, you'll get access to 4 different weapon types. While they are neat, they do have pretty limited movesets, which would normally incentivize fiddling around. That said, if you want to gain access to any of the legendary endgame variants with their own slight tweaks on the movesets, we either have to go an absolutely grueling grind for all of them, or simply buy them. That's right, you can buy those legendary endgame items at the cost of 1,150 currency, which is especially insulting since if you spend $10 in the game, you get 11,000. Essentially, the minimum cash shop currency that you'll need to purchase one of these is $20 to get that weapon. Or I guess 3 batches of $5 at an especially bad turnout for bang for your buck. But yeah, that's right, that's just there already, just such an unfathomably gross manipulation that this feels less like a video game and more like a machine made to print money for Airship Syndicate in Digital Extremes. Also, while you currently can't buy the legendary variants for the other 5 weapon types, you also can't actually buy their basic variants, so I'm imagining this current trend will in fact hold true. It's just waiting in the wings. And I haven't even really gotten to the gameplay yet, so I'm just gonna be forward right here and say it's not even that great of a game either. Within the few hours I'd played, I'd unlocked the full gamut of my chosen character's moveset. Now, Nasea's pretty cool, but your actual kit feels extremely shallow. You get a pair of passives, 3 active abilities, and an ultimate. That's a character, that is it. That's what the game expects you to drop $15 on. Like, I don't deny it's neat to mix and match this with the weapons, but those have equally small movesets, which makes it really awkward that I'm supposed to grind to level 30 with just that in my repertoire, and if I want to have a very slight variation on that weapon, I need to drop anywhere between $15 to $20. Also, did I mention that there's already a season pass that you can spend money on? Because yes, that's a thing too. Really, the only part of the cash shop I don't absolutely hate is the cosmetic purchases because, well, it's cosmetic. It doesn't influence the game at all. Also, the fact that you can freely dye items is legitimately my favorite aesthetic option in the game. Wayfinder actually did something really good there, finally. Also, while I want to praise the overworld because it felt somewhat neat to explore, I can't even say this is great because there's a lot of weirdness, like enemies triggering aggro on you from several rooms away, even with walls between you and them never having line of sight but them just beelining towards you anyways, or the fact that you can't climb ladders or fast travel if an enemy is nearby, even if nearby means they are 2 minutes away, hiding behind a tree but aggroed on you, or that enemies will occasionally become invincible and just sit near a wall, which is horrible when they spawn as part of a chest challenge, or again, if they're blocking your ability to use something, or that range attacks can break an enemy's AI if you're far enough away, and they'll just sit there and let you shoot them in the head, despite how much they love finding me when I'm using a melee weapon only. Just fuck, man. I think the only element I legitimately thought was cool is that you can choose your own elemental modifiers for the dungeons, because while there is character customization, the vast bulk of it amounts to yet more grinding and typically just numerical bonuses. Technically, the echo system, which allows you to slot in echoes into your character, can provide interesting passives, but they're few and far between, with most simply being more stat boosts that you need to grind up. I fucking can't, okay? I tried so hard to give this a fair shake. I underwent the busy work of just fast traveling back and forth between the locations for the NPC quests and getting kicked out midway through to wait another 2 hours. And this is such a flawed launch. And pausing from this review to see air quote reviewers end fucking air quote who praised this game after having all the max level gear and characters just dropped off in their laps in a tightly curated demo, so far removed from the actual experience, has me wondering if they're just ignorant to how gross all this was going to be in practice, or if they're just fucking shills paid to ignore how predatory this goddamn game is. This is about the point where I normally talk about a game's visuals, and okay, here we go. They're fine. There's a Battle Chasers meets League of Legends vibe to the graphics. It just looks fine. The characters are okay. The world and enemies look okay. It makes up for none of what came before. I don't have any issues with the voice acting and the music either. Those are actually pretty good. But like, after all this, great, good. It did something right. Woo! You passed the minimum, the bare minimum there. My title isn't clickbait, by the way, if you haven't gathered. It's my genuine opinion of the game in its current state. You're buying into testing out a game that still has issues like you casually backflipping out of bounds. A game that wants you to do the work of an actual QA team and throw them a few $100s in its directions if you really want to fiddle around with its inner workings. Wayfinder wants only one thing, and it's fucking disgusting. Because it's your wallet. It just wants your wallet. So yeah, while I normally just fail anything in this current state because of how much of a mess it is and how much it was not fun, I'm actually going to give this one the rare denomination of a crit fail for its status as a janky, shallow money grab that doesn't look like it'll really get better on that front. P.S. If you want me to go to Digital Extreme's head office to try and interview them, find out if this was their influence, leave a comment, because if enough of you ask, I'll damn well try. Thanks for tuning in. This is a far cry from my normal vibe, but I'm so done. For so long, I wanted to be a video game journalist and work for some sort of outlet and bring that passion there, and just, there's nothing. And no one talking about this, despite how blatant it all is. Maybe Maybe you agree with me, maybe you disagree, maybe you just have something to say, like asking if I'll be okay? If so, there's the comment section, and for all of you who haven't been put off and want to see more honest indie reviews and interviews from someone who gets into the weeds and actually finishes the games, or plays them in their actual states, or damn well tries to because they care, there's a subscribe button. I'd love to see more of you. It's the reason I have a Discord, which is in the video description. That all said, I'll catch you on the next episode of Crit Hit, where things will hopefully be fine. They will be fine, probably, maybe. Take care till then, folks.